So, sorry again for that interruption. Let's continue, Tanya. We are on chapter 9 in the portion of the 10th of Tevet, the 13th in a leap year. So, we're talking about the animal soul and the godly soul are waging a war over control of our bodies. The desire of the godly soul is that, and the desire of the animal soul as well, is that the entire body should be permeated and dominated by that specific soul specifically, to the exclusion of any other alien influence, and this is a healthy thing. So, that is to say that the three brains that are in the head shall be permeated with the Chabad of the divine soul, namely the wisdom of God and the understanding of Him, by pondering on His unfathomable and infinite greatness, and from them shall be born, through da'at, through knowledge, awe in his mind and dread of God in his heart. So, we have the three brains, it says in our heads. What do we mean, three brains? It lists them right here. Chokhmah, Bina, Da'at, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. It's three aspects of the function of our brain. All of this that we should, and this is the desire of the divine soul, the godly soul, that we should develop these intellectual powers, to be able to influence our emotional powers, so we should be able to serve God with an actual revealed love and fear in our hearts. Okay? Questions, thoughts? As well as a love of God that shall flare up like glowing fire in his heart, like flaming coals, so that his soul shall yearn and long with passion and desire to cleave to the Ein Sof Yisbarach. What is Ein Sof? Who is Ein Sof? The infinite one, Hashem. This is God. Blessed be he with his whole heart, soul, and might. It kind of sounds like the Shema, right? And from the very depths of the right ventricle of the heart. Again, we said earlier that the emotional headquarters of the divine soul is in the right ventricle. The entire headquarters of the animal soul is in the left ventricle because it's got more blood, more passion. So, I guess remind me later, we'll talk a little bit about Shema. So the latter would be so thoroughly permeated with love to overflowing as to inundate the left side as well, to the extent of subduing the Sitra Achra. What's the Sitra Achra?
The other side.
The other side of what?
Holiness.
Right, the not holy stuff. It should dominate the not holy stuff. All of this holy and passion, holy emotion, awe and dread of God, love and desire to cleave to Him, that this should be just overwhelming all of the physicality, all the mundane stuff in our hearts and our minds, right? That's the idea. With the element of evil water, right? We talked about the four elements, solid, liquid, gas, and energy. So the liquid state, liquid makes all things flow, makes all things feel good, makes all things smooth. Water makes all good things grow, right? You want to go to the beach, it's free. You want a room that overlooks the beach, it's another $100. So, let's see here. You want to overcome the evil waters, the self-seeking, pleasure-seeking attitudes, right? And you want to just seek godly pleasure, namely the lust stemming from the klipat noga, right? We're not even talking yet about unclean passions. We're talking about permissible stuff, right? But I should rather, says the divine soul in my head, speaking to my heart, I should rather want to study Torah rather than go get a cheeseburger. No, I'm just getting a regular burger. That's it. Okay. All right. Changing it and transforming it from seeking the pleasures of this world to the love of God. Thus it's written, Bechol levavcha, with all of your heart, i.e. with both of your natures. That is to say that the person shall steadily rise to attain the degree of abundant love, ahava rabba, a supreme affection surpassing that of ardent love, and it's comparable to burning coals. So, the desire of the godly soul, we've said, is what?
Serve God, love Him.
To serve God. To serve God.
To have dominion over the whole person.
Over the whole person, right? Even exclusive dominion, right? What does this exclusive dominion mean?
It's good.
The other king
to the
doesn't rule.
exclusion of any other alien influence.
Right, that the other king does not rule.
Right.
This is the meaning of V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, that you should love the Lord your God bechol lavavcha, with all of your lavavcha. It should say bechol libcha, right? With all of your heart. That's how you say it in modern Hebrew. What's the Torah inventing new words for lavavcha? What's the extra letter there? It's an extra bait. Bait has a numerical value of 2, with both of your heart, with both of your inclinations, your Yetzer Hara and your Yetzer Tov, right? Your godly soul and your animal soul. So, the desire of both of the souls, is it malicious toward the body? Does the animal soul want to hurt the body? What's the goal of the animal soul?
To have its way.
What is its way? Pleasures. Why does it want pleasure?
Because it's an animal.
Because it's an animal. It knows instinctively.
Klipa
Noga, right? The animal soul knows instinctively, I need to eat to live. I need to reproduce to continue this species, right? I need a safe dwelling if I'm going to be able to survive at all. It loves the body. The animal soul loves the body. It wants to make sure that it's okay, it's supported, it has everything that it possibly needs. So the animal soul is not a negative influence on the body. Where's the problem come from? If you're not serving God, what's the point of having a body, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So when it says bechol levavcha, with both of your hearts, what's the message behind this? The message is that even with the animal soul, should you love God? How does that work? There are 3 ways to deal with the animal soul. One way is to deny it and lock it up, and you don't even pay attention that it's there. Is the animal soul accomplishing its function at that point?
No.
It's not messing you up, right? The other way is to channel those desires. Okay, you have a desire to engage in intimacy. Oh, well, then go get married, right? Go produce children. You have a desire to eat. Well, why don't you go and have that steak on Shabbat when it's a good time to eat, or Yom Tov, or a bar mitzvah, right? Or whatever the case is. Use that desire in a godly way. That's way number 2. What's way number 3? Understanding the essence of the animal soul. That we should be able to know that the animal soul cares about us and wants what's best for us, for our whole package, really. And that its function here...
The animal soul wants what's best for it.
That's very true, and we're going to talk about the selfishness of the animal soul. But the desire of everything is to do what God created it for, right? And if the desire of the animal soul is to accomplish God's will, which is to take care of the body, what's the best way to possibly take care of the body? Ensure that the body has eternal life, right?
Indulge in the lusts.
Not to indulge in the lusts, right?
The animal soul wants to,
right.
It's eat. You're hungry, eat.
Right, exactly. So if we can love God with all of our heart, with both of our hearts, right, then we can teach the animal soul, harness that raw pleasure-seeking power of the animal soul to seek the pleasure of God, right? We're fulfilling the desire of the animal soul because we're filling it with everything that it wants, kind of, pretty much. But we're using it in a holy way, understanding that the animal soul really wants godliness as well, right? Even though the animal soul itself may not understand that. Godly soul certainly does. So if we can change it up here, we can change it here.
Right.
Peter, in one of the 2 epistles, expresses that very idea in a unique way, that we realize what our lusts, our evil desires are, but we actually use them in a godly way.
Absolutely true.
We transform them.
So one way is, again, channeling that energy.
I'm changing the words because I don't remember the exact word verbiage. Do you know? It's like chapter 1 or 2 of one of those 2 epistles. You don't know? No? Can I see that?
Sure.
I was thinking of Paul in Romans 6.
Okay.
It says, "Know ye not to whom you submit yourselves servants to obey, his servants are whom you obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience, submission unto righteousness. And so he exhorts, yield ye therefore your members as instruments of righteousness,
Right.
which leads to life," right?
That's exactly the point. So again, you could do that by channeling your animal soul, harnessing that energy. This is very good. Or you can do it in the way of bringing the animal soul to full light, right? Understanding what the animal soul's purpose is and using all of the godliness that God enabled us with in order to serve those desires in a way that serves God at the same time. Does that make sense?
You mentioned eternal life a minute ago because it says sin leads to
death, right? Ultimately, if you can teach the animal soul, and it's a task and a half. I mean, it's easier to just channel it. But if you could teach the animal soul that the way to get its highest pleasure is by serving God, then you've accomplished more, right? You've really bechol levavcha v'ahavta Hashem.
Right.
Okay. Did you find it?
not putting my finger on it, but to actually use those desires in a godly way to serve God.
That's the idea. You know? And that's what it means here, b'chol levacha, with all your heart, as it says, with both of your natures, right? And that's from the Talmud Tractate Brachot, 54, page 54, side A. That is to say that the person shall steadily rise to attain a degree of ahava rabba, this abundant love, supreme affection surpassing that of ardent love, and this is comparable to burning coals. So, this is what is called in the scripture, ahava tanugim, betanugim. The love of delights, the love of true delight, right? Understanding that a piece of cheesecake or a piece of any of the pleasures of this life, right, are wonderful and even possibly godly. Baruch Hashem, if you eat the cheesecake on Shabbos or on Shavuos or whatever. But if you could, again, teach the animal soul that there is a higher level of pleasure, then this could be something very powerful. I think it was the Rabbi Rashab in the Chabad that had said, broken it down in his one of his works, the 4 different types of love, basically, of pleasure that there are. So the 4 different types of pleasure are the pleasures, the bodily pleasures. This is anything that feels good for the body, food, sex, etc., etc. A higher level than that is the love of music, right? There are some people who won't eat, and they'll rather go to a concert. Or the higher than that is intellectual love of intellectual stimulus, that you should have a great lecture, right? And then a beautiful sermon, perhaps, right? That you're very interested in something intellectual, right? Whatever that might be. And then the 4th level, this special level, is love of God, right? Pleasure associated with godly things. And that's the highest of all these forms of pleasure. So this is called ahava betanugim, the love of delights. And this is this higher level of love, which is the experience of delight in godliness, of the nature of the world to come. It's like a taste of olam haba. This delight is in the brain of wisdom, in the intellectual pleasure of comprehending and knowing God, to the extent that one's intellect and wisdom can grasp Him, right? We're finite creatures. It's impossible to grasp an infinite God. At the same point, we can have a taste. This is a taste of the world to come. This is the element of water and seed, i.e. the light that is sown in the holiness of the divine soul that converts to good the element of water in the animal soul, from which the lust for mundane pleasures had previously been derived. So the idea is the animal soul has a desire for pleasure. Okay. If you could teach it to love God, now you've just added a lot of horsepower to your service in God. Simple enough? Okay. Thus it's written in Eitz Chaim, Shar 50, chapter 3, on the authority of the Zohar, that the evil is converted into and becomes completely good, like the good nature itself, through the shedding of soiled garments and the pleasures of this world in which it had been clothed. Parable I heard from Rabbi Gordon, I think it was parable of a little baby. And the little baby, you got to take the baby to a wedding, right? And you bought him a lovely little handsome little suit. But the problem is, the baby's been playing in the mud and he's got a full diaper, right? So you can't just take the baby and put him in the holy garments, right? First, you need to remove the sullied garments, and you need to clean the baby and use the, what?
Hose him down.
Well, you hose him down. You give him all the nines, right? You give him the oils and the baby powder and all of the stuff that you might need, and then you dress him in the fine suit that you bought. Okay? So this is the idea. The animal soul in our bodies is called an old fool. Why is it old? Old.
The older shall serve the younger.
The older shall serve the younger. That's exactly right. So how does that practically work out? What did you say before?
How did you start that? The what?
Animal soul is called the old fool. The old foolish king, right? As opposed to this younger righteous king. Why is it called old?
Is the old nature.
Old nature, I like that. Fact of the matter is, does a baby have a very firm concept of how to serve God intellectually and emotionally? No. What does a baby have a very firm concept of?
What it wants.
What it wants. That's animal soul stuff, right? When does a baby, when does a child, when does a human become aware in a godly sense.
Bat mitzvah.
Bar mitzvah, right? This is when you say, okay, now you're a man and you have the ability and the obligation to do these mitzvahs, right? Okay, it could happen a little earlier, it could happen a little later, people mature at different rates, whatever. The idea here is, as a newborn baby, you're running just on the animal soul. So it's older, okay? And it's more foolish, because it's selfish. Selfish desires. Again, those selfish desires are very important. We need to eat or you're not going to live. At the same point, if life's just about eating, what's the point? So you need to remove the old nature, the old dirty, soiled garments, the pleasures of this world, and then you could put on the holy stuff.
That was a good point you made about the body wanting everything for itself. In other words, the means is the whole purpose rather than to an end.
Right.
And what good is it to be in a body if you're not going to serve God in it? If you're not going to serve God with it?
What's the point?
If it's not serving God. That was that was good. I like that.
And for me, I science background, so I see, the blood just goes to where all the rest of the bones are, especially the femurs. The bones make blood, so the blood is just trying to make, the soul is just trying to make more godly, or animal soul rather, That's what's been going on for 5,778 years. So too shall the other midot in the heart. What are the midot?
Attributes.
Chesed, Gevur, Teferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. So too shall
the emotive attribute.
The emotions, right. A midah is a measure. So too shall the other midot in the heart, the offshoots of love and fear, right? All of the emotions stem from love and fear. Those are the little parents, I guess you could say. They should be dedicated to God alone, and the faculty of speech that is in his mouth, and thought that is in his mind, shall be entirely and solely the instruments and garments of the thought of speech of the divine soul alone, namely meditation on God and his Torah, which shall be the theme of his speech throughout the day, his mouth ceaselessly studying it, Torah, mitzvahs, and the faculty of action that's centered in his hands, as also in the rest of the 248 limbs of the body, the organs, shall Torah points. Shall function exclusively in the performance of the mitzvot, the commandments, which is the third garment of the divine soul, all of the action-oriented mitzvahs. So we spent this entire time, how the Alter Rebbe spent this entire time talking about the divine soul, the godly soul. What does the godly soul want? Control over the mind, control over the heart, that we should be able to do. What do we mean by do? All of our garments, thought, speech, and action, should be engaged in godliness alone. How is that summed up? Torah and mitzvahs, right? The godly soul wants us to spend our entire thought, all of our thoughts, all of our words, and all of our actions just doing mitzvahs and studying Torah. This is very good. This is very good. So now let's talk a little bit about the animal soul. And we've alluded to it a lot throughout tonight so far. However, the desire of the animal soul, which is derived from the klipa, is the very opposite. The opposite of everything we just said. And it is for the good of man that he prevail over her and vanquish her, as in the parable of the harlot in the Holy Zohar. And that's the end of chapter 9. So let's talk.
Can you give us a little... with the parable of the harlot. Yes, the king.
We're going to talk about it.
The prince and the harlot.
Yep, we're going to talk about that. First, let's talk about this concept. What have we said tonight? God makes a man. Okay, God makes the world. He puts the man on the world. He says, go do mitzvahs. And inside the man, he gives him a godly soul, which says, yes, do the mitzvahs. And then he gives an animal soul that says, it's more important that I eat now. I can't give any more money to charity. And all the thousands of brilliant excuses that the animal soul comes up with. The Alter Rebbe is asking.
They're all rooted in the Klipat Noga.
All Klipat Noga, right? And selfishly oriented. The animal soul is just out for the body. It doesn't really care about that abstract stuff. It loves 7-layer cake. It fears.
It's running on the power of the Sitra Achra.
That's exactly right. And make no mistake, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of horsepower there. At the same point, it's just totally selfishly oriented, which is fine in measure. So the Alter Rebbe is answering a very important question here right after the hyphen. It says, the Alter Rebbe is alluding to this question, okay, if this is the spiritual composition and the structure here, and we have these two souls warring over control of the body, for heaven's sake, why would God set this up this way? I think it was Rabbi Gordon, and said, in the words of Reb Tevye, would it spoil some vast eternal plan if we just had a divine soul and there was no animal soul making us horrible people? Right? Why?
Well, then it would eliminate the process of free will.
It would essentially eliminate the process of free will. That's what the Alter Rebbe says here. He says it's for the good of man. What do you mean the good of man? That he, mankind, shall prevail over her, who's her, the animal soul, and vanquish her, as is in the parable of the harlot in the Holy Zohar. So that act of resisting temptation, training us every day that we should be able to overcome the forces of negativity, the sitra achra, the mundane stuff in this world, so that we should be able to serve God even here, is good for us, right? It makes us stronger. It gives us merit. It gives us reward eventually. This is all very good, but it gives God pleasure, and that's more important than anything else. And for more on that, we're going to be talking about in many chapters to come. So why did God set it up this way? Would it ruin some vast eternal plan? Absolutely it would, because then we would have no reward. And God desires very much to give us, and he would like to give us more. However, that requires us a participation from us to avoid that bread of shame.
I think in the process, the man, the struggle, learns the truth by experience and learns to hate evil and learns...
That should be in a perfect world.
He learns what's really going on, and if he's struggling, then he arrives upon a good understanding and therefore a love for the truth about Hashem and about himself. And it's not because he's just been told this is the truth.
Right.
He experiences the struggle and loves the freedom that comes from it.
Exactly. He's not an automaton in this process anymore, right? He is engaged in it. It's part of him. He has ownership of it, right? And he says, this is my kingdom. This is my life, and I'm an independent entity now. And there are very few creations throughout the cosmos who can say that the way that we can, right? And I chose God out of my free will. Because I could have done a bunch of stuff today, but instead I decided to come here and study Tanya, right? Because I own that now. And that's a powerful thing. God wants us to have that power. He cares about us, right? So, as it says in the parable of the harlot in the Holy Zohar, I heard an interesting line today. It said, what's a harlot doing in the Zohar? So let's discuss. The citation here is...
She's there to test.
21. 21 is the... see, I'll see in chapter 29. This is the parable. And it's written all right here. It's in Zohar 2, 163a. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
It says, a king desired to test the moral strength of his only son. He had a most charming and clever...
That's the purpose.
That's the purpose, right? So that we should be able to, everything we just said, have ownership over this. We can overcome negative forces. We should be able to be the king someday, right? And the king loves the son, his favorite child. If there's more, he loves the son. He gave him the best education, trained him from birth to have this mantle of king, right? This is the chosen son.
It could be shown, too, that the son loves his father.
Yep, absolutely.
Because he was presented with a choice. So it's not just a matter of, well, we all know that he loves me. There's proof that he loves me.
Exactly. And that's
historic, recorded proof.
Right, and that makes it for a deeper relationship, yeah? So that whole concept is basically that blue section down there on our little map of Tanya, our beloved map of Tanya.
Is that at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
And thus his inheritance is not merely a matter of by right or just because, but also he demonstrates a connection and a worthiness of it in his action.
Now let me stop you there, because you're absolutely right. And we're on this track. He should merit it. He should own it. It should be his. Is it him that's doing it?
No, it's the Lord.
That's exactly right. The king set all this up. The king set all this up for our benefit, right? Let's continue the parable. So the king desired to test the moral strength of his only son. Again, his son that was shaped from birth to be this new king, this royal king. He had a most charming and clever woman brought before him. Went down to the red light district, right? Explaining to her the purpose of the test, he, the king, ordered her, the harlot, to try her very best to seduce the crown prince. For the test to be valid, the harlot had to use all of her charms and guile without betraying her mission in the very slightest way. Any imperfection on her part, the part of the harlot, would mean disobedience and failure on her mission. What happens if you disobey the king? Does it go good for you? That could ruin your whole day, right?
Even a bunch of days.
Even several days, right? It could ruin like your whole life even. So while the harlot uses all of her seductive power, she inwardly desires that the crown prince should not succumb to them. She, like everybody else in the kingdom, loves the king and loves his son. At the same point, she's going to obey the king, because what choice does she have? This parable is intended to explain the ultimate function of the animal soul, with its inherent evil and complete license and independence. Yet, although the forces of evil must be real enough for the purpose of which they have been created, their origin and purpose is rooted in good. God only makes good things. Look at all the evil in the world. How do you explain that? The answer is, God made everything for good. God works everything together for good. To those that believe, right?
And they can be, in fact, so converted.
Right. And they can, in fact, be so converted. Herein lies the underlying principle of the problem of evil. This is what the Alter Rebbe is saying in this chapter, that we should be able to sublimate and elevate and transform the negativity that exists within us in such a way that it should become another godly soul. What happens if you do that completely? You are called a tzaddik. Yeah?
So here there's the answers. The favorite question, why is there evil?
Why is there evil in the world? Because it's for our benefit. It's going to make us stronger. It's going to make us better.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you stumble in it and fall into it? You're going to make a big mess. But it's okay, because God allowed for a method for us to be cleaned. Baruch Hashem. So this is the parable of the harlot in the Holy Zohar. Others have discussed this parable a little bit further and said, because of the fact that this chief harlot knew the mission, she automatically was not going to be able to be very effective at it. So the harlot went and she got a friend, a close friend, right? And she didn't tell her everything, this other harlot friend.
Mm-hmm.
But she told her enough. This is the mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that friend knows this chief harlot. So she knows something's up. This says some of the commentators on this parable. So that friend harlot goes and gets another friend harlot. And it's still not enough, so they get another friend harlot. And now, down the fourth down the line, or however many it is, it's so far removed from the original goal, so far removed from the king, that they really use all of their might and all of their power to test and tempt the son, right? Who's the crown prince here. So all of the negativity in the world comes from that kind of a thing. They all know the king, they all love the king, but at the same point, they all have their jobs. And, based on this, there could be a reward for these harlots at the end because of what the king had decreed, and if they obey and they follow. However, secretly they want the son to win, because they all love the son, because they are all loyal subjects of the king, because no one is outside of the power of God. And if you're talking about, okay, who's the harlot, and you're talking about forces of negativity in this world, we'll go read the first chapter of the book of Job, right? Everything in the universe is created by God for good and is subservient to him. And that's the foundation of fundamental of our faith, Hashem Echad.
Further, Genesis 4:3, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Purpose of all of the...
Evil is crouching at the door and it wishes to
Right.
dominate.
However,
you can dominate it.
this is, however you can dominate it, you have control over it. That's the entire human condition in like 10 words. The entire Bible. And it's right there in the beginning. People read one line and then they go and I don't even know what. So, this is chapter 9. Any thoughts or questions? Fact is, we have two souls. A godly soul, rooted in God, and an animal soul, rooted in the Klipat Noga, that are at war, and our battles are the body ground. And we need to pick, we need to choose which one to feed. And the fact is, the animal soul has a head start. And it's easier for the animal soul to be controlling because the animal soul is loud and it has a big booming voice. And the godly soul speaks like God does with a still small voice. Right? So like I said in the beginning, that this is one of the most important chapters of the Tanya. And without this, if you only study this chapter 9, I think you would have done very good in your studies of the Tanya because of how important it is. So that's it for chapter 9 for right now. Join us again for chapter 10. Shalom.
Shalom.